Good evening, everyone. This is the Town of Dartmouth Conservation Commission's public meeting for Tuesday, September the 10th, 2024. And it's now 7 p.m. We're conducting this meeting remotely as a result of Governor Healy signing on March 29, 2023, a further extension for hybrid remote meeting options for municipalities. She extended that option until March 31st, 2025. This meeting does allow for interaction by the public. There's a raise your hand feature in the bottom bar, and if you wave your hand, we'll somehow or other recognize you. I will indicate that if you stay muted when others are talking, it does help so we don't get extraneous background noises. This meeting was duly posted by the commission on the town's website, the commission's website, in accordance with the town bylaws and Massachusetts general laws. We do have a quorum here this evening. So we have 5 commissioners. There'll need to be an affirmative vote of 4 for any action to take place. And before we get started, I just want to sort of make a bittersweet announcement. I was speaking with Kyle this morning, and he informed me that tonight will be his last meeting as a conservation commissioner. He's received a substantial promotion at work. Congratulations on that, Kyle. Well deserved.
Thank you, Mike.
We will certainly miss you, and the enthusiasm you brought to the commission, your dedication to the commission. Whenever I needed something done, you were right there and you followed through. So I appreciate that. It's certainly probably one of the reasons why you were promoted. You're reliable, you're intelligent, and I appreciate very much having served with you. I will miss you, and I think the commission will miss you. In the future, if you have the opportunity and the inclination again, if your hours of work change, the door remains open.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I just want to say thank you to all you guys for supporting me and the ones that have been here a long time teaching me about, serving the public and doing it with integrity. I think this board is made up of many people who serve with integrity, and we always vote and do the right thing. It is bittersweet because this is stuff that I love to do. And, it's not only this, I coach youth sports and stuff like that. Unfortunately, 3 to 11 is the only spot open right now. So that's where I'm at. I kind of have to take the promotion. They pay me, you guys don't. I'm just kidding. But
someone got to pay the bills.
Hopefully within a year or so, there'll be some retirements coming and I'll be able to get back in action in the town. Thank you.
Thank you,
Congrats, Kyle.
Thank you.
That's Kyle, and thanks.
Thank you.
So I wish we could conclude the meeting on that note, but we have to go on. And we have our administrative items first. And the first is the approval of the minutes of the August 13, 2024 meeting. May I have a motion to that effect, please?
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. We'll have a roll call vote. Megan?
Yes.
Kyle?
Yes.
Liz?
Yes.
Nat?
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. The second administrative item is the approval of the field trip reports of August 27, 2024. May it please have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Megan?
Yes.
Kyle?
Yes.
Liz?
Yes.
Nat?
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. Our final administrative item is to receive the minutes of the August 27, 2024 meeting. I have a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Megan?
Yes.
Kyle?
Yes.
Liz?
Yes.
Nat?
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. We're now moving on to our field trip reports. We have 4. The first is a request for an extension permit, DEP file 15-2519. It's REP 24-6 from Chris Vandenberg for the continued construction of multifamily residential projects in accordance with the previously issued order of conditions on land described as map 48, 52, and 163, lots 11, 38, 8, 9, 56, 57, and 58 respectively. It's also known as 769 State Road. Mark, I know you've circulated by email recommendations, but we'd like to hear your recommendations for the minutes.
Yes, this project is affectionately known as the Preserve. It is the large 40B project on State Road, just west of the old tennis club, soon to be cannabis distribution and growing center. This has been a little bit complicated, as a lot of 40Bs can be. And has been slowed by townside issues in the building department relative to issuing building permits and cease and desist orders that have been issued. It has delayed the process of the project and its progress. In as far as the order of conditions is concerned, we were out there today. We covered the entire site. The work here is related largely to work in buffer zone. For those of you who sat on it way back when, and there is a small wetland impact with restoration. The cutting has been done, the tree cutting has been done throughout the buffer zone, and it is intact. Siltation and erosion controls are intact. They have yet to do the restoration because they've yet to fill the wetland, because that portion of the work has not progressed. This project, this order was supposed to expire on August 18th of 2023. However, because the permit was issued during the statewide COVID crisis, this fell within the guise of the COVID permitting tolling extension period, which extends the order's expiration date to 11/22/2024. So the permit still has a couple months left. Having said all that, staff is recommending a 3-year extension to 11/22/2027 for work to continue on the preserve. This is a project which really needs to get underway and moving, and I feel that the request is justified given the delays that they have experienced to date.
Thank you, Mark. Does any commissioner have any questions of Mark? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to issue a 3-year extension of the permit to November 22nd, 2027 on DEP file 15-2519.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Megan,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Nat.
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. The second field trip report is also a request for an extension permit, DEP file 15-1957. That's REP 24-7. It's from Salters Point Improvement Association, care of Tate Nielsen, for annual dredging in accordance with the previously issued extensions and order of conditions. It's on land described as map 88, lot 25. It's in the waters off of Buzzards Bay Avenue. Mark, again, you've written your comments, but I think for the record, we should have them spoken And I know this has been, we seem to get a lot of these recently with there's requests for extension permits for ongoing maintenance, I guess I'll call it for lack of a better word. And I know we're waiting to hear from town council on how best to proceed. But for this evening, since we haven't the guidance of town council, we're going to have to make a stand somehow.
I agree, and we'll not belabor the point. We dealt with a similar situation a week, last meeting. Where we're getting these extensions upon extensions upon extensions, which prolong the life of a permit. And I'm not sure that was ever the intent of the extension permit process, but be that as it may, we do not speak to it directly in our regulations. It is not really spoken to directly in the state regulations. So I believe that, we're constrained by certain limitations here. A little background, an order of conditions was issued on May 17th, 2007 for a 90 cubic yard dredging project and landside disposal of the dredge spoils adjacent to the dock area in a parking lot area. This is in the area of the dinghy dock at Salters Point, which is on the north side of the dock at the end of Buzzards Bay Avenue. That order of conditions had a 5-year lifespan ending on the 17th of May, 2012. Several extensions have been issued of varying lengths, the first extending the project an additional 5 years to May 17th, 2017. A second was issued for another 3 years, 5/17/2020. Lastly, it was extended another 5 years to 5/17/2025. So the permits is still active until May 17th, 2025. They chose to request this extension well in advance. Again, not to restate what has been stated, but we're kind of grappling with these multiple extensions. What is, I think, critical about this one, which begs the question of how the commission wants to react, is unlike a landside issue where conditions are pretty stable, this is a waterside application. And you have changing conditions. You have shoreline retreat, shoreline deposition. You have the potential for eelgrass. You have the potential for resources like shellfish moving in or moving out, depending. So I guess the empirical question is, can you rely on an extension beyond 2025 on a plan that was the original plan was dated January 28th, 2023, of which the original order was issued? We're talking about now 22 years on a shoreline, and I think all of us who live on the coast are aware of what can happen to a shoreline in 22 years. This is not a terribly exposed shoreline. I think that conditions probably do not change as radically here as they do elsewhere, but nonetheless, the shoreline is a dynamic environment. Having said that, I think there are 3 choices that we have. The first is issuing another extension up to, but not more than 3 years by regulation. We can't give them another 5 years. DEP will not allow that. 2, the commission has the option to deny any extension permit they so choose. But in doing so, given the length of time of this particular order, if you were to deny, we would need to require a certificate of compliance to close out the original order. And thirdly, if you were to not deny, you would need to, and if they wanted to continue doing this work, they would need to file a new notice of intent. So that the work can be reevaluated against current 2024, 2025 conditions, as opposed to relying on the consistency of 2003. Those are the three options that are, in front of you. I can argue both sides of this, but I think given our discussions up to date, and I do have as a discussion item further discussion on these matters. I think that probably another issuance with a stipulation that this would be the last issuance moving forward is probably the most appropriate way to go. But I leave it to your discretion.
Thank you, Mark. Does any commissioner have any comments or questions?
Yeah, real quick. I think that's probably a good idea, making it possibly the last one. And where Mark said, these waterside conditions are continuously changing. That's something that we should evaluate down the road on how we handle. And I know we're going to and working on that, but definitely got to figure out what that time span will be. Every so many years it has to be reevaluated and stuff like that.
I agree with both you, Kyle, and Mark. Personally, I would only be willing to extend this, even with that limitation, for an additional 1 year, which would give them until May 17th, 2026. I'm not inclined for another 3 years. I mean, we'll be approaching 25-year anniversary from the original filing. And I think that under any interpretation of the regulations, that's beyond the spirit of them. You don't get an order of conditions in perpetuity. That's why they expire after 3 years, because conditions do change, and that's a quarter of a century. To me, I'll be willing to go an additional year, but I'd be very hard pressed to go beyond that. And I agree with both you and Mark. This should be marked as the final extension, so that they should be prepared to seek closure on this, which is a certificate of compliance. And they may have to do some work in the intervening 2 years to make that happen, I guess. But I don't want to, and they came in quite early, so I applaud them for that. They didn't wait until a month before. But that's me personally.
Forgive me if this is already clear, but how often are they doing the dredging? It's like the actual dredging.
I can't tell you. They don't report to us. The shoreline seemed very stable. But again, unlike other projects, water moves sand in and out. So, in a month,
Sure, a weekend.
the
It's a big storm.
stars can be erased. I mean, there was certainly deep enough water when I was there. The dinghies were floating. I could see the bottom. I did not perceive any eelgrass, although I did see eelgrass offshore in another direction, but away from the footprint of this. But I can't tell you. They don't report to us.
Yeah. Okay.
I would entertain at this juncture a motion to issue an extension on this DEP file 15-1957 for 1 additional year, expiring on May 17, 2026, with the express stipulation it is a final extension. No further extensions will be granted on this order of conditions.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Megan,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Nat.
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. The third field trip report is a request for certificate of compliance on DEP file 15-0353. That's RCC 24-28 from Mahim Agai care of Richard J. Rayum, Prime Engineering, for the as-built drainage conditions on land described as map 177, lot 65. It's otherwise known as 88 Hathaway Road. Mark, I know your recommendation was sent by email, but again, for the record, what is staff's recommendation on this request?
Yes, a little background on this one. As you can tell from the file number, this is a very old filing, dating back to the 80s, I believe, the late 80s. Anyway, Dr. Agai owned the parcel of land identified as map 177, lot 65. Now, currently, lots 177, lot 65 is the large vacant parcel on Hathaway Road that this commission has seen in recent times for various development options, which have never gone through. The property was never ever purchased by those developers and continues to sit idle. Dr. Agai would like to sell it, and it was found that it was encumbered by an order of conditions, file number 15-0353. However, Dr. Agai was a little confused and forgot that immediately to the southwest of the vacant land is a long parcel, which is the Evangelical Church parcel. And that site was subdivided out of the original lot, although the order of conditions was issued on the original lot when both lots were one. So even though lot 65 is still vacant and has been vacant for years, that portion that was subdivided out has been developed into the church, and there's a parking lot. And there was original concept to put catch basins in the parking lot and tie them into a municipal stormwater drainage easement, which pre-existed the church and runs from Hathaway Road down into the wetland area. That easement exists and that drainage line does exist. However, the church never constructed that drainage, the catch basins or their tie into that drainage system. Therefore, for the purposes of this notice or this order, no work has been done. Now, there's been activities on the site, but all of those activities have been outside of jurisdiction, so they would not have had to file. The only reason they had to file was because the proposed drainage system that they were going to build was going to tie into a storm drainage line that discharged at the edge of the wetland, and that made the tie-in jurisdictional. Didn't happen, no project, no work. Having said that, staff is recommending the issuance of a complete COC on this file.
Thank you, Mark. Does any commissioner have any question? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for the issuance of a complete certificate of compliance on DEP file 15-0353.
So moved.
Second,
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Megan,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Liz,
yes.
Nat.
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. Our final field trip report is a request for certificate of compliance, DEP file 15-2357, RCC 24-29 from Gail and Albert DeMello, care of Richard J. Rayum, Prime Engineering, for the work and planting restoration done in accordance with the previously issued order of conditions. This is on land described as map 165, lot 194. It's otherwise known as 26 Norfolk Avenue. Mark, again, staff's recommendation, please.
Yes, before I give you a recommendation, spoiler alert, this one is gonna require wet signatures, so. Whatever decision we make, I need to see you this week to sign. Whatever we decide here. This is a very small restoration project that was done. It has taken many, many years for various reasons. I won't bore you with the details. Some of which were illness, some of which were they did it wrong a couple of times and they had to continue to fix it. Well, they have finally fixed it in accordance with the original design, plan of record. And with that, staff is recommending the issuance of the complete COC. The wetland area is doing quite well.
Thank you. Any commissioner have any questions? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to issue a complete certificate of compliance on DEP file 15-2357.
So moved.
So, second.
Second,
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Megan,
Yes.
Kyle,
yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Nat.
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously.
Remember wet signatures.
Bach, I'm in a
I'll
training.
see about getting in. I know I can get in certainly by Thursday morning, but I'll try to get in tomorrow.
Bach, I'm in a 2-day training down at Roger Williams, so I won't be until Friday morning.
Okay, I probably won't be in the office, but Jenna will be, so
Okay,
just sign it, that's fine.
you got it.
If we have 4, I will email you and just say no need.
Okay,
All we need is 4, but if we don't have it by then, we'll need whatever we can get.
okay, perfect.
Okay, fair enough.
We're moving now on to our public hearings. The first is public hearing on DEP file 15-2749. That's NOI 24-37. It's an after-the-fact notice of intent from Paul Raposo for driveway improvements, stonework, and the construction of a pool, perimeter fencing, and enclosure for various fowl and restoration plantings within the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. The applicable regulations are 310 CMR 10.02 and 10.55, as well as Section 2 of the Town of Dartmouth bylaw. It's on land described as map 39, lot 11. It's otherwise known as 709 Russell's Mills Road. I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Seconded motion, roll call vote. Megan,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Nat.
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. And here this evening, we have someone to represent the applicant.
I see Margaret Bacon and I see Brendan Faniff. I don't know who's speaking on this.
Brandon, you got your hand raised, so yeah, if somebody can unmute him.
I think you're good, Brandon.
Good. Margaret Bacon just joined. I raised my hand because she didn't raise it fast enough. So,
She's got her hand raised now.
yeah. So she's managing this project. So if you don't mind, I'll mute myself again and let her speak.
I don't mind at all. Thank you. Go right ahead, Margaret. You can unmute yourself and should be on the lower left-hand side of the screen. There should be a microphone. If you just click that, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Well, Margaret's working on that. I guess I can give a little bit of an update on the progress of the project. A sticking point at the last meeting, Margaret tells me, was receiving the approval of the adjacent property owners, because the adjacent property owners were encroached on by the Raposos with their work in the bird pens and the parking area. And what we were waiting for is some kind of assent from the property owner behind the chicken coops. So we did receive an email from Christopher Cornell, who is the trustee of the Cornell Nominee Land Trust for that property. Sent an email giving conditional permission to access the property, book 3643, page 0061, located to the northwest of 709 Russell's Mills Road, with 3 conditions. Was forwarded to a number of people, Mark Garrett being one of which. I believe that the site plan is in good order, but that was the last piece of the puzzle, I believe, unless I'm wrong, and I'll give it back to you.
You know, Brandon, that's my recollection as well. I think you accurately recited it. And I know there was some efforts made to reach the Cornells. It just took a while because the
Right.
person that I knew to be the trustee, unfortunately, is in a nursing home. And I know there was a lot of work being done to try to figure out where to go next. So I do appreciate that work that you folks did to
You
to
can
get
thank
this.
Margaret. She did all the footwork on that.
Okay, well, Margaret, you did a good job, you know, and I'm glad that Mr. Christopher Cornell is provided the approval. The conditions that he recited, are those acceptable to the applicant?
Yes, they are. There were 3 of them, if you want me to recite them for the record.
Please do. I think we should.
Okay. The first condition is access is limited to the area under repair by the applicant. And that's they reference the site plan that's currently before you. The second condition is all future access is removed when work is complete. And the third condition is any and all liability is assumed by the applicant for the duration of the project. So all 3 of those conditions are accepted by the applicant.
Thank you very much, Brandon. Mark, I'd like to hear staff's comments on this. I know you've written, but again, for the record.
Well, I think that Brendan, covered it very accurately, as a matter of fact. The one sticking point last meeting was the fact that we did not have any kind of communication from the property owner, and it was that morning that I had found out from DPW. We were under the impression that the town had gotten the title to the property. That had not yet happened because there was some sort of title issue, and the title was still in the hands of the Cornell Family Trust, which kind of pivoted where we were heading for authorization. There was, we had a couple of tribes and a few of the older Cornells who either were unavailable or just were not, and this was Margaret, I didn't do it. We're just not available to assist in this. And then I stumbled upon Chris Cornell's wife's phone number, passed that along to Margaret. Margaret contacted her, who told Chris. Chris then contacted our office as well as, I believe, ESI. And I had a conversation with Chris yesterday and basically said, Chris, where do you stand? He says, well, I don't know. I said, well, and I explained the situation, and he said that he would run it by their attorneys, which he did, and presented us with the email specifically to myself, Margaret, and Brandon. I forwarded that email to the commission once I received it. So we're all on the same page, and I think this covers that missing piece for us to move forward. Again, this is an enforcement action, and resolution is critical, and timing is critical. Having said all that, staff is prepared to make a recommendation for the issuance of our standard order of conditions, to include our standard restoration conditions, and including a condition which we added prior to last meeting which was, that a planted and unmaintained vegetated herbaceous strip be included along the northeastern property line. Currently, the lower lawn area between the relocated shed, fence line, and off-site pond, and extending from the retaining wall to the rear property line. That has been depicted on the plan, that the latest plan dated August 27th, 2024, and is our recommendation to issue those conditions in accordance with that plan.
Thank you, Mark. Does any commissioner have any questions of either the applicant's professionals or staff? I don't see any. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to speak on this application? Once again, I don't see anyone.
I do have one question for the commission. We have 3 conditions of approval by the Cornells. Do we want to incorporate those into the order of conditions?
Given the fact that we need the Cornell's consent in order to even act on this, I think we have to.
Okay,
Because that's the conditions under which the consent was given.
then I would modify my recommendation to include those 3 conditions as part of the order.
Fair enough. So, again, does anyone want to be heard on this application? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Megan,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
my vote is yes. That passes unanimously. I'll now entertain a motion to issue a standard order of conditions with our standard restoration conditions, with another condition that the planting on the northeast strip be as described by Mr. Garrett, and that the 3 conditions articulated by email and by Mr. Faniff this evening from Mr. Christopher Cornell be incorporated into our conditions.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion. Roll call vote. Megan,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
my vote is yes. That passes unanimously.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you for your hard work, Margaret and
I mean,
go ahead.
Mark, is there any chance that you could send me the original order of conditions for recording?
Via certified.
That'd be great. I appreciate it.
Now, if we send it, we have to send them via certified mail.
Of course.
Yeah, I can do that.
Thank you.
We're moving on to our final public hearing. It's a public hearing on DEP file 15-2752, NOI 24-40 on the notice of intent from Daniel P. and Julia Moniz to construct a single-family dwelling with a garage, an in-ground swimming pool, driveway, subsurface septic system, and a retaining wall within the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering wetland that's on land described as map 41 lot 50-5. It's otherwise known as 3 Moniz Drive. I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Megan,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
my vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. We have received on by email a request from the applicant to continue the public hearing until Tuesday, September 24, 2024. Mark, I don't know if you want to speak to that, but generally it's the first request for a continuance on this matter.
Yeah, the request for continuance is actually generated by staff.
Okay,
Jenna went out to do a site inspection of the wetland line and the proposed project is staked in the field. She found very few flags visible. It's an incredibly thick site. She did find many flags on the ground. The structures were also not in the field. So we contacted the engineer, David DeVignan, and told him about this, and he kind of mulled it over a little bit. Mr. Moniz went out and found 3 flags. They were the 3 flags that Jenna found. Couldn't find the other ones. Or let me rephrase, didn't indicate that he could find the other ones. And they acknowledged that the structures were not staked in the field. Having said that, Mr. DeVignan requested via email that this be continued to the 24th. They are supposed to be, they are scheduled to go out this Friday, the 13th, to reset the flagging. I guess they're doing a perk test and reset the flagging in the wetlands and flag or stake the house and the other pertinent structures, and we will then be able to inspect it after they do that. So we are recommending the continuance.
all right, so this is staff's recommendation. Has
Well,
Apple,
no, they requested it via email based on the fact that we said we can't make a recommendation to
okay.
commission to approve based on what we didn't see.
I understand now. Okay. Is there any commissioner who wants to ask any questions of staff? Is there anyone in the audience that wants to speak on this matter? All right, I don't see any for either. So at this juncture, I would entertain a motion to continue this public hearing until our next public meeting, which will be on Tuesday, September 24, 2024 at 7 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor, so we'll do a roll call vote. Megan,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Liz,
yes,
Nat,
Yes.
my vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. That concludes the public hearings. We still have items for discussion. And, well, I guess we have no bills, but on the first item for discussion, we've already touched on that with our field trip reports, and that's the multiple extension permits. And we're just waiting for, I believe, advice from town council. I saw the email that Mark had written to the one of the town co-administrators, and that permission was granted to get town council's input on that query. I take it we haven't gotten anything yet.
Haven't heard anything yet. Nope.
Yeah, so once we do, then we'll bring that up as an item for discussion. And then we can talk about, based on the recommendation, what, if anything, we want to do going forward. Okay. So Mark, you want to talk about the enforcement issues, please?
Yeah, real quick, Francis update, we have a due date for completion on September 17th, 2024. That will not be happening. I'll give you the brief on it. I was working with Brendan, over the course of the summer. Brendan indicated to me that they had an equipment failure, which slowed them down. They had started the work. So as time went on, they said, well, just keep me informed. As we got into September, I emailed Brendan saying, can we get out on site? Can I get a status report? Brendan indicated to me that the Francises had retained counsel. So I informed our town council of that. Yesterday morning, their Francis council showed up at my office without scheduling, but we certainly sat down. We had a wonderful conversation on the project. That would be Heather Bonnet Hebert, who is sitting in and listening as we speak. And we kind of exchanged ideas, and she indicated that, and please, Heather, if I misspeak, please correct me, but it sounded to me that Heather was on board to get this project resolved as expediently and as practically as possible. She did indicate there was no way to get it done by the 17th. I indicated, staff's long time frustrations and commission's long times frustrations, and she understood completely. And I think we agreed to work together to try to get this done in a timely fashion. We are into the we're into the autumn season. The growing season will fast be passing by. So it looks that any kind of real planting effort, it could be done, but may not be prudent to be done. And do we destabilize the site anymore to overwinter? So they are working on a new schedule to proceed. I've shared that with our town council, and everybody is just kind of sitting and waiting to see where we go with this. Obviously, there is a desire to complete this on all fronts, and I think that all the professionals and consultants are working towards that goal at this point. And that's pretty much where we stand as far as I understand it. So I'm kind of waiting to hear from Attorney Bonnet Hebert and or Brendan as to what the new schedule is for proceeding. I did indicate to Attorney Bonnet Hebert that if we were to extend this beyond the winter, we would want a start date of, end of March. Certainly weather permitting. We don't know how wet it will be and how accessible it will be, but certainly looking at a date to proceed as soon as we can get in there, and as early in next year's growing season as we can get in there.
I interject for just a moment, Mark?
Yeah, absolutely. You have the floor.
Just to add to what Mark is saying, we did have a productive conversation. I did email a letter to Mark and to the commission late today. I think I sent it around 5 o'clock.
I missed it.
No, yeah, so I didn't expect you would have time to circulate it or necessarily review it. But in the letter, I tried to summarize some of what we talked about and the commitment of my clients, who are the Francis brothers. The enforcement actions have been against the father, who's the life tenant on the property, but the sons are sort of taking up the task of completing this work as their father has been increasingly burdened with dementia issues. And that seems to have played some role in this, although clearly this has been going on for a very long time. I went back and looked at the last video from June, and Mike, I think you had said that your hair was not gray at the time when this matter first began. So
Not as gray, maybe.
so I have been trying to get up to speed on it, but the approach that I've recommended and my clients are on board with, and I've talked to Brandon and now Mark about, is, we have to get it done. The time for questioning what has been done in the past is long gone, and we need to get it done, and they are on board with doing that. There's just some practical difficulties with the equipment and sometimes the weather that have made it difficult. They are doing this work themselves. They've purchased an excavator to get it done so that they can get it done as quickly as they can. In that letter, if you have a chance to circulate it, Mark, it does have a picture that Brandon Phaneuf took when we had a site visit August 19th. I and my clients had asked if he would come out and sort of reassess where we were at, how much progress had been made. So I included a picture for you guys in that letter so you can see it. And the gist of it is simply that I think if we can get additional time and allow them to work as long as weather will allow that to happen in terms of excavating this year, I'm happy to keep in touch periodically, whether it be, weekly, bi-weekly, whatever the commission wants, to let you know what's been done and where we're at. Is the machine fixed? Is it not fixed? So that we all have a sense of where this is going and that there's going to be an end to it. The brothers are wanting an end to it. They want to get the work done. And, there's certainly the intention, I think, and the motivation. It's just a matter of the time. One thing that Brandon brought up, and when we were discussing it yesterday after my conversation with Mark, is that in this area, as a bordering vegetated wetland, it is in the springtime often inundated with water, sometimes as much as, I believe he said, a foot of water, maybe less, maybe more. But if that's the case, it's not really going to be ideal to be excavating in that environment, which could then delay it into the summer if we stop excavating, for example, in October, assuming we can get the machine started. It's just going to keep pushing the project out, which is why, as I mentioned in the letter, when you have a chance to read it, maybe a good path is to try to get the machine fixed and work as long as weather allows, defer planting until next year and until such time as it's, approved by Brandon and if need be by the commission, whatever process you guys think is best, we are wanting to accomplish that.
I appreciate the efforts that are now being made. And I know between the professionals who are here on behalf of the applicant, that those good faith efforts will continue. I will say, as far as communications go, I would think, not to be overburdening, but I would think at least once a month there should be a communication or at the conclusion of some event towards the completion of the project. And I also want to make the comment that I understand machinery can break down, and I understand that the Francis brothers want to do this themselves, but if they can't get the machinery repaired in a reasonably quick time, they may have to rent new or additional machinery and or get somebody to do it, because we can't continue the completion of the project until they get around to fixing the machine. Okay, so I would say that that machine's not fixed within a couple of weeks. They should rent a new machine to do this work. I understand the hardship it might cause, but we've waited a long time and we're trying to be patient. And I think that we'll work with them if they work with us. And I think there's a good start to this now. And I thank both you and Brandon for making, I think, a very concerted effort to bring this home, and we'll work with you both and the applicants.
I appreciate that. I will convey that to them. I know one of the challenges with, for example, renting a machine, I brought up that option as well, is simply the cost of it is high. And I know that that's not, an excuse. It's got to be done one way or another. So they're trying to work through that, and so that they can get it all done and get it done right. So we'll try to find that balance, and I will report back on the machinery as soon as I know more.
I'd appreciate that.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just jump in.
Yeah, please.
And comment on what Brandon said, and I totally concur. And I think in my discussion, I said, weather permitting, I know that the end of March could be a very wet time out there and limiting. So I understand that. And I agree. What I would suggest is if they want to, excavate as much as possible and as much as time will allow and weather will allow in the fall, that's fine. My only concern, and I think I mentioned this to you yesterday, Heather, is that, bare dirt is unstable in the winter. So I would like, if they were to further destabilize the site, I would like some sort of stabilization, overwintering stabilization, so that we don't lose more to erosion or what have you, whether that's, a seasonal planting, winter rye or something, or, some matting or whatever, but matting can tend to get pretty expensive, so. But I would certainly support as much work as possible, as long as we can keep the site stabilized. We do have wetland resources on one side, we have a pond on the other side, so we don't want to lose materials, unstable materials into those resources.
In my understanding from looking at the site recently, it looks like whatever excavation would be done is digging down, so that if it were whatever's unstable in that lower portion wouldn't be going upward over the banks of it,
That's fine too, but I mean, what they excavate, I don't know. If they're
Okay.
gonna contain it within a bowl, well, that's fine.
But if it's, for example, if they have piles of excavated material, that would need to be planted with some sort of seasonal winter rye or something. Is that what I'm
Right.
understanding?
And I'm just thinking, like, if they were to excavate one of those channels to the pond, well, that becomes a vector for sediment movement, so we would have to protect from that going. I don't think they would, but I'm not out there watching them dig. I don't know what they're gonna dig or where they're gonna dig when, so.
At this point, I think the plan is to reserve that part to the last phase of the excavation project, the connecting to the pond. Brandon, do you have anything to add to any of that?
No, Mark's point about stabilization is well taken. I know what to do.
Thank you.
And Brandon, correct me if I'm wrong, when we were on the site visit, weren't we talking about working from the Kingfisher property towards the pond? Wasn't that sort of the sequencing that we were discussing?
Yes, it was, Mark. We were going to scrape back, starting in the Kingfisher side, working towards the pond. And the last thing that was, or one of the last things that was going to be done is there's a little bit of a berm that was going to be left between the restoration area and the Kingfisher land. And then that was going to be taken out last. So then now the Kingfisher land and the Francis land is now at the same elevation. And at the same time, right around the same time, connect the three channels to the wildlife pond
Yeah.
on the north side.
That's what I recollect.
Yeah.
Okay, I appreciate the update, and we'll knock on wood somewhere that we get everything moving along and hopefully in the ground by next year.
It's the
Thank
goal.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot, guys.
Okay, have a good night, everyone.
Thank
Good
you,
night.
too.
Bye.
Mark, you have another matter you want to talk about?
We've got 1031 Old Fall River Road. I have forwarded you some emails with some revised dates. Mr. Alves is pleading ignorance on this, and it's like, get it done. You've impacted not only buffer zone, but wetlands. He has hired Sharon Engineering. He sent me a scope of what they were gonna do, which was totally inadequate because there was no restoration involved, and I informed him of that. I expect to see something by the 26th, or we will have to take further stringent actions on this one. On 1363, 1395 North Hicksville Road, again, a past due response. We've revised the submittal due date to 10/10/24 because finally they have put together a reasonable project team to address this. This is the old Levesque site up on North Hicksville Road. You may remember Mr. Levesque. And the project team is Zenith Engineering, Niall Ziegler, Stephen Schmiel, and Bill Kinney of Riverhawk Environmental. We had an old auto depot yard up there. There may be hazardous waste. There may be agricultural waste in the soils. We know there are filled wetlands. So they're on the site trying to assess what was and what is so that we can move forward. Steve Schmiel, who was conversing with me, indicated that the 10th may be a tough date for them to get everything together that they need to. I said, stay in communication with me and we'll work on it. This is a big step in the right direction since we have sat and heard nothing for 2.5 months. At least they have a qualified team on the ground working. So I think that is certainly a positive update regarding that. Other than that, nothing else. I do have one item that didn't make this agenda, not reasonably anticipated. If I could enter that in, Michael?
It wasn't reasonably anticipated, so you may.
Okay. At the end of last week, it was requested of both Chris Michaud and myself to attend a site visit at the Jerebeck property off of Old Fall River Road. DEP wanted to do a status on it relative to what the conditions are up there and how it folds into their new requirements. As you know, we have expended the monies that were gifted to the town by the Jerebecks to cover monitoring and maintenance costs. We expended those last year. We had to take funds from town coffers. And we anticipate that they are going to probably increase the requirements, and we are going to probably have a town line item in the annual budget for the Jerebeck property. How that goes over at town meeting, I don't know. There are a couple of snafus. Conservation way back when voted to accept the donation. When they put the deeds together, conservation was never included in the ownership, only the town of Dartmouth, which leaves it in the select board's hands according to the deed. However, conservation continued to operate and maintain it prior to me getting here, and certainly after I got here. So there are some questions as to who's going to be responsible and how that's all going to transpire. I think somehow it's going to sit with us. I don't know, depending on what DEP requires of us moving forward. I don't know how we would be able to address that or not. I don't know if we would be equipped to do so. So that's going to be something that we may have to revisit down the road.
Okay.
So that's just an update. I have no answer.
I can understand the conundrum, but a deed is a deed. That's who the owner is, and it ain't us. If the town select board wants to engage the Conservation Commission to do stewardship, then it'll have to be an increase in our budget to do that.
Yeah, I think these are all things that have to be ferreted out.
Yeah, I mean, because it will take, it's not just money, but it's staff time, and we don't have an extensive staff here where we can, and I understand why that, select board doesn't want to do it. I mean, that's really not in their wheelhouse in terms of expertise. But nevertheless, that's not for a discussion tonight, but it will be for a discussion at some point. Anyone else have any comments relative to matters they want to bring before us? If not, I just want to once again say, Kyle, thank you. It's been a pleasure. And I will also say I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome, Kyle. So we have a seconded motion on the floor, and I'm going to start with you, Kyle. You get the vote.
Yes.
Roll call vote. Okay, Megan,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
and my vote is yes. All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night, guys.
All the best, Kyle. Have a good one. Thanks.
Thank
All
you.
of us, Kyle.
Kyle.
Thank you. Good night.